Hey guys, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. For this video, I decided I was going to show you how to do an impression pattern on one tier and then a stencil on the top tier. I kind of wanted to get the two different techniques working together in the same cake, and I tied it together with this crackled fondant strip. So if this sounds interesting, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is, as always, go ahead and put our buttercream on our crumb-coated cake. This is my American crusting buttercream that I will attach a link to either in the description or an iCard. I always try to remember to add that. If I don't, it is in my list of videos, and if you ask me, I will get you the link. So this time I'm using a piping bag to put the buttercream on. You can use a piping bag, you can just use your palette knife, it doesn't really matter. Whatever method works best for you. This time I just didn't want to get my hands all sticky. So I decided to go ahead and just use the piping bag. Then I blended it in, and then I'm scraping off the excess and filling in any holes or gaps that you might come up with along the way. And there I just sprayed some water. That helps me get my buttercream smooth. You can always dip if you use a metal spatula, you can dip it in, or a scraper, dip it in hot water. That works as well. But I just find that water bottle for me is just a little bit more convenient. I don't have to worry about boiling water or even just getting hot water in another container, and that's just extra things laying around. So excuse my kids running around. They're on summer vacation. So this has been the challenge of the summer. So yeah, go ahead and do this to both of your tiers. And I colored this just with a pale pink with a little bit of ivory in it also to give it more of the dusty pink color. Now we're gonna roll out the fondant. You can use whatever brand of fondant you prefer. I personally like the marshmallow fondant the best, the LMF fondant, which I have done a tutorial on as well. But for this one, I think I did just use Wilton because I had it on hand, and that's fine. Just make sure that you are incorporating some shortening into your fondant while you're conditioning it to give it some elasticity. And just get that fondant rolled as even as you can and measure out how big of a piece you need. For this bottom one, here's my little impression mat. This is actually, I bought a little kit or a variety pack. They're two-sided little mats that are actually in the clay department, I believe, or jewelry of my local hobby store. I like to use things that are different, and sometimes to find something different you have to use something that's not traditionally meant for fondant, and these little mats do the trick. And what is really nice about these mats is that they are a continuous pattern, and what I mean by that is if you use it and then your next piece lines up, your next section lines up with the previous one, you just have to kind of find the indents on the edge of the previously pressed section and get your next section lined up. It's hard to explain. You kind of got to go by feel. You can feel that it has settled into what you had already pressed in. Kind of like wallpaper, how one piece leads into the other. Hopefully. That doesn't always happen, but that's what you wish for. Now my other piece has been set to the side to firm up because I was going to do that ragged edge to it, and it works a little bit better if you have it set to the side to dry out. I guess the one I just showed you. This is the next one. And then I just rolled it out the same way and cut it to size. And I added a little shortening to the back of my stencil. And what I'm doing is just pressing it into the fondant. And the shortening will get it to stick. Don't put the shortening on the fondant itself because that can prevent your color from happening. Just do it on the stencil. Just a thin coat. And then I'm just using my gold paint, which is just edible luster dust with some Everclear. And I'm just sponging it on into the pieces that are exposed through the stencil. This takes a little time. Just, take your time, get it right. You don't need a whole lot, just as long as the pattern is covered. That's what matters. You don't have to cover the whole stencil. Go for the pattern. Because this luster dust is not cheap, you don't want to waste it. So kind of put it where you need it. And then right away you can go ahead and peel off the stencil. I think it gives a really clean look. I have done it before where I have done the shortening. I guess the shortening doesn't prevent it from sticking. I take that back. I have done that before. instead of doing the Everclear, making a paint out of it, and it worked fine. Okay, I retract that statement. It would be fine, but you'll get a better look, a more smooth, even look with your paint if you don't have the shortening on the fondant. It will affect the overall look of it. Now I just tore the edges, and this is going on the bottom tier. And just roll it up. I find it's a little easier just to roll up your piece of fondant that you're transferring, and then unroll it on your cake. And I wanted to make sure that those edges were about the same height where they meet up. And then cut off your excess, and then just butt the ends, the pieces together. Smooth your join where they join together, and try to remove all those air bubbles. When you have a pattern, you don't want to press too hard because you don't want to soften your pattern, especially if you're doing more of a monochrome type of look. You want the pattern, the impression is the texture. It is the eye-catching element, along with edging out this gold with gold. I debated on if I was going to do that or not, but I thought once I put that fondant piece on there, it needed some separation so that you notice that the buttercream on the top is plain and that the bottom fondant piece has the texture. And now this top piece has dried. I didn't show you how I did it, but I waited for the first section to dry, and then I went back and did the same for the end piece. But the entire thing dry, which does not take long. That took maybe half an hour. Then cut off your excess, cut it to size, and then wrap it around your cake the same way. And if it is dry, the paint will not crack like this. If it is dry and you have let your piece set aside long enough, it should not crack. If you're stretching the fondant too much, it will. And you will notice on the crackled piece that I wrap around the middle, that is what you do with that to get the crackled effect. But this is a smaller piece, and I didn't let it sit. That is the difference. I didn't let it sit and firm up. I just applied it right away. So I just rolled this out to about an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch thickness. The length to wrap around that top tier on the bottom. That's why I didn't stencil it all the way to the bottom, because I knew I was going to do this piece around, put a band around it. And I like these quilting rulers because you can see through them and you can see where you need to cut, and it holds it in place at the same time. It's pretty cool. Makes life a lot easier. And then I just put on some piping gel. I brushed on a thin coat of piping gel, and I'm just attaching this edible gold leaf quickly, because your piping gel will dry, but you can just reapply if you need to, but I didn't want to have to. I didn't want to have to use extra product, so I did it pretty quickly. And then just use a soft brush to remove the excess. Just like when you're adding gold gilding or gold leaf to an art piece, it's the same technique, except this is edible gold. Now we're removing the excess just to clean up the mess. And first we're gonna go ahead and let it set for just a couple minutes. It wasn't long. Just long enough to stack my cake. And I just used that Crisco can because it was the right circumference, just to mark where I need to put my straws. And these straws I bought are a little on the flimsy side, so I have to very carefully guide them down. I have jabbed my cakes more than once because they gave under the weight of me pushing on them like that. But don't worry, when you are stacking a cake like this, you have more than one straw, so you have stability that is stronger than when you're just pushing on one straw. I'll cut them all to the height of the cake and add a little buttercream as a glue so that your top tier does not move around. And here's where I'm just gingerly lifting up that fondant piece, and you can see that it's pretty floppy. But that's what gave that cool crackle effect, is that it pulled it apart a little bit and it left me with some crackles. And I thought, I really like that look. I debated on whether to go back and add some more gold leaf to it, but I didn't want it to attach other parts of the cake. And I thought, no, that's really neat. So I'm just going to leave it. So I did. Now I have a huge flower here, very oversized flower. And I liked the height of it, but the flower itself was too tall or too big, and I didn't have any smaller ones. I didn't want to have to do a grouping of flowers. I wanted to do just the one single flower. So you'll notice in the end picture here, I moved it down. I thought it was just too much sticking up, so I moved it down for the picture. So there you go, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something from it. Hope you can use something that you learned on this video. And if you would, please go ahead, subscribe. It really helps. and I appreciate you watching. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticates by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.